Grog.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Sideshow podcast. I'm Peter Fickling, and as usual, I'm joined by Kerry Warbus and Matthew Weir. Thank the Lord for Lee and Roy, because after a double serving of Yam Yam York and Ruth, I was ready to call quits on this week. I just didn't think I could do it. What about you guys? It was awful.
Yeah, I think it kind of veered from one absurdity to another. That's what it felt like listening the first time round, especially. Second time today, a little less of that, but very odd, very peculiar.
I mean, the thing about the Lee and the Helen plotline is you did care a little bit, didn't you? And also we had the extra level of interest because, of course, we have the wonderful Ryan Early on the podcast next week, so we'll be able to get the skinny, the inside track for what he thinks about Lee, any sort of tidbits about Lee's personality. Is that an oxymoron? Not anymore, actually. Not anymore. I'm not. It's not just because Ryan's coming on, but I have done a bit of a U-turn on Lee. I am starting to warm to him.
Did either of you two wonder when you were listening this week whether Lee was bullied himself in the past? How he passionately was saying, and that's why they keep going if you don't challenge them.
I didn't think about that because I'm quite obvious, as you know. So I was sort of like, I tend to just take it as delivered till I've had a chance to talk to you guys. It would fit with all of the cliches, wouldn't it? Like, the typical story of the guy who does martial arts is often like, oh, the kid was lacking confidence, or the kid was bullied, and the parents take them off, and then this is where they develop their sort of a bit more backbone. I don't mean that in a negative way, I mean sort of help them stand up against the world. So no, I wouldn't be surprised if you're right, Kerry.
Yeah. Did you think that, Matthew, at all?
Well, I thought that, or maybe possibly his daughters had been subjected to some bullying.
Oh, that's the other one, yeah.
Because he got very, as you said, like they shouldn't be allowed to get away with it. And he was on his way around there to sort Kyle out, wasn't he? Vile Kyle, as he was branded by Joy.
Yeah, he very quickly did want to punch someone, didn't he?
Mm.
I don't know if either of you two, well, I certainly wouldn't have gone to the punching someone stage.
No, I think he just isn't over the unboxing of Wolverine.
But it's sublimated, and this is how it's finally expressing itself. I mean, Kerry, how would you feel as a woman if your man was trying to protect you? I mean, would you feel slightly patronised? Would there be a kind of primal kind of appreciation of the sort of his desire to look after?
I think it depends what's happened. If someone had said something about me on a WhatsApp group chat, I would deal with that myself, for sure. Quite enjoy doing it, probably. But
Yeah.
but going back to your question about the primal, I think it's all right to be protected by someone if something particular happens. If I need physically protecting, then that would be quite admirable.
Yeah. It's not. I mean, yeah, it's not my natural inclination, but especially since I've had a little boy, I have thought a bit more about that sort of stuff. Like maybe throwing the odd punches. It does have its place. It is a good thing. I mean, obviously, this is all going to come to fruition. I decided after the episode that Rob would be able to beat Lee up in a fight.
Are you going to bring that up next week?
I was going to maybe ask Ryan about it, but I think I've never seen. I mean, obviously they're the actors and the characters are two different things, but I don't know how much Ryan attaches his ego to Lee's prowess, in a fight. But
yeah, I reckon Peggy could probably take Lee down.
Ooh, I tell you what, chefs can get pretty handy when it's required.
What, Ian?
I kind of imagine Ian as a sort of. He's kind of like I think he's kind of like Jack, but looks like Jack Black, but it's kind of short hedge, sort of like a more kind of ruddy Jack Black. And I can imagine him being like a little kind of like a honey badger or a kind of Wolverine.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I say that because Ian was very much the voice of calm, wasn't he? In all of this, trying to explain to Lee in all of this that Helen's gone through this. She's heard worse than this, and the worst thing you could do is fly off the handle. Normally it's chefs aren't normally that well tempered. I was quite impressed with him, but I was kind of imagining if he, if the roles were reversed, quite how Ian might react if he was hearing gossip about Adam. It was very interesting.
A miracle, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and there was that thing where he said about keeping it a secret what was in the WhatsApp group from Helen, and Ian said to Lee that keeping secrets, it doesn't serve any good purpose for anyone or something like that. And I just thought, and Adam hasn't told him about the money.
Yeah, there's a $5,000 secret heading your way, Ian.
I think Brian's going to make good, and I think he's going to sort it all out. I think Adam will do something incredibly stupid, and then Brian will scoop him up and bring him back into the fold.
But, well, it already is sorted out, isn't it? Because Adam just walked down the bank and they handed him $5,000.
But why
do?
Yeah, but why is he avoiding Ian then and just grunting and snorting, which is probably a blessed relief, to be honest, just hearing the grunts.
Didn't Ian say that that compared to Adam, Xander was a good conversationalist this week?
Yes. That was funny. Yeah, because they were making the playhouse, weren't they? Drilling away together.
Yeah, I thought he was using one of those power mixers at first, like he was making like custard or something. And I realised they were fixing up the playhouse.
I put something on Twitter that's caused a mini stir, which is that I think Ian and Lee get on really, really well together. So I've sown a seed of them two at some point having a bit of a liaison on Twitter.
Yeah. I'm not getting the bisexual or curious vibes from Lee. I've got to be honest. But I do. But every single fibre of my body wants it to happen. Just for the the hilarity.
Yeah, I just think Ian gets on better with Lee than he does with Adam. They sound very relaxed around each other, and Lee gets on better with Ian than he does with Helen. Again, they're way more relaxed with each other than they are with their own partners. So it just crossed my mind when I was listening.
I mean, they both open up to Lee a lot, don't they? I mean, when Adam went on that long rant about the money and all of that situation, he really opened up to Lee, and Lee had only come round to get some risers for his drum kit.
Yeah.
It's just, and then, at the same time, Ian is happy to be in Lee's company. It's interesting how he kind of, we thought there was going to be more of a dynamic between Tony and Lee, and it seems much more between Adam, Ian, and him.
Yeah, watch this space. I was shot down in flames on Twitter by it. People just thought I was weird to think it.
I mean, as we talked about, that my approach to this week was slightly different. I didn't listen when we spoke in the WhatsApp group as late as Wednesday. I hadn't heard a single episode.
Yeah, I was very disappointed you listened. I was looking forward to dragging you through it because obviously I couldn't spoil the plot, but so much of your experience as a teacher was relevant this week.
Yeah, I mean, I thought of looking at the cast list and trying to piece together my own story, but I mean, once I started, and so I came to it after everything on Thursday, and I listened to it all of them back to back, like the omnibus. And between what you'd said and what I'd read on the tweet along, I had a sense of what was going to happen, and I thought people don't seem to like it this week. I was like, do you know what? People didn't like Heaven's Gate when it came out, so maybe I'm going to listen. Not 20 years later, but 20 minutes later, and it's going to be like, this is Michael Cimino's masterpiece, and I'm going to listen to these 4 episodes, and it's going to be fantastic. But no, it's a crock of shit.
I mean, I was saying to Kerry earlier on that I felt, and I'm not saying this to be hyperbolic or kind of dramatic, but I felt offended by the whole plot line with Yam Yam York, the PE teacher. It was like, and I felt very sorry for the actor who was having to try and, breathe some life into that nonsense. And I felt sorry maybe for the writer who was thrown that.
Do we know who the actor was that played, Bum Baxter? What's his name?
There wasn't that.
Sorry, that was one of the teachers at my school.
That wasn't that. Wasn't that Emma's nickname when she was at school? No, she was Sweary Carter.
Sweary Carter.
Yeah.
I did like Gormless 1 and Gormless 2.
That was brilliant. Yeah. Ed's like, I'm not Gormless.
Yeah, Ed was fantastic. Ed is a very the guy who plays Ed. Kerry knows his name. But he's a very good actor. Yeah, he was really breathing some life into his. He was breathing life into those rather limp lines.
He was quite an old school teacher, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, because it's like 32 years I've been trying to bang this biology teacher, wasn't it? Pretty much. There was a lot of teachers, wasn't there? The PE teacher, biology teacher, then Catfish Woman, she's a teacher, isn't
Yes,
she, as
exactly.
well?
So there's teachers left, right, and centre. And sorry, to go back to Yam Yam York very quickly, but definitely want to get Matthew's take on all of this, right? Because is it just me, or one, his behaviour was appalling anyway in any circumstance with anyone, but secondly, this is the grandfather and stepfather and a former pupil, and you're going out with all these nicknames, making all kinds of judgments about the family, about their behaviour. I
Mm.
mean, it's absolutely appalling. I mean, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm not a particularly sort of censorious or judgmental person, but I was just like, it's
Yeah, when he said to Ed, didn't he? Try and guess which teacher it is that I'm marrying. You know, it's the one that all you lot, were fancying all the time, wasn't it? And he went, "Oh no, not Miss Peters." or whatever it was.
Well, there was a bit quite early on when him and Ed realised where they knew each other from, and he said something. Laid down his first little snipey comment then, and Eddie dealt with it just by saying, "I think you're still drunk, mate," which I thought was really Eddie just being like, "We're going to have to put your shit-eating grin on because this guy's going to pay up. We're going to rinse him." Basically.
Right, that's another thing. Sorry, I'm taking Kerry's role as the sort of person who's sort of picking through the details. So sorry for that, Kerry. But the other thing that annoyed me was they were supposed to be over the moon for this 200 quid that he got for the evening. Now, I don't, I don't sort of, I'm not earning mega bucks or anything, but upkeep, petrol, 5 hours out of the house, you know, I mean, it's more patronising attitude towards the ground. It's like this idea because I was talking to my wife about this. Eddie's a clever guy. He's, surely can we just put an end to this Eddie being over the moon for 100 quid here, 150 quid here, scrapping and dodging and diving for these kind of like these sort of pennies. It really, I just when can he not just retire into some kind of sort of avuncular role finally?
Yeah, the petrol probably cost 100 quid, didn't it, to
Yeah,
run a limo
easy.
round everywhere? Yeah, it was 300 in total, wasn't it? Because he got 200 and then got another 100, but then he gave 100 to Ed.
Yeah, but it was the 200 was the 200 was the big exclamation to Clary Love, like, oh wow, Clary Love, 200 quid. It's like, come on, can we stop talking about them like they're indentured servants?
Well, that's what he got the 200 on the actual night of the stag, didn't he? Which was effectively them leapfrogging around pub gardens very professionally. But then when they kind of had him over a barrel the next day because whatever her name was, the biology teacher,
Miss Peters.
Miss Peters, yeah. Oh, that bit where he was like, physical education and
Yeah.
biology were at our pinnacle of sexual pokery or something.
Yeah, he said there's no getting past us for the heights of physical satisfaction or something. Head of biology and head of PE. Yeah,
Eesh. I mean,
Jesus.
all right, so Yam Yam Yorkie, what were the best nicknames of teachers in your school? I couldn't think of any.
No.
Oh no, there was. I can't remember any nicknames. Well, there was one teacher who I could do such a good impersonation of him that I could manipulate. I could get children to leave the room or do stuff, and that was a lot of fun. So that was Mr. Stebbings. And then the other one was I did a comic with my friend about all the teachers, and it was I did the Last Supper, and I wrote for this teacher called Mr. Long that his speech bubble rather unamusingly said, I can't do something because I'm off to have my lobotomy. And I was censored by the teacher who was in charge of the comic, and so we just left it empty instead. Which of course was 1,000 times more insulting and more satirical. Everyone else had these kind of like crowded speech bubbles, and his was this huge one with just with emptiness in it.
Very
So
good.
so that was wasn't particularly popular with the teachers, but I can't remember. What about you, Matthew? Is it?
Well, impression-wise, I used to do a really good impression of our English teacher, Mr. Truelove, to the point where I was doing one to the class one day before he was due to arrive, and there was that classic moment where I was finishing. I was like, "He's right behind me, isn't he?" I turned around, and there he was. We had quite a good sense of humour about it. Now, nicknames, no. We had a very robust, well, the girls did, a very robust female PE teacher, and her name was Miss Tash, which kind of writes itself.
Oh,
The only I was just thinking I just had this nightmarish memory of their idea of teaching us humanities and history was to give us a book on the Incas or the Romans. We'd have to read it, and then they'd set us 40 questions, and we'd sit there in silence trying to peel through the book for these
What
answers.
joy.
And eventually, people would just be passing like Panini-style notes around the classroom. We have 37, 23. We need, and you'd be swapping answers. Then they'd get more and more random, and eventually a piece of paper landed on my desk that said, Mrs. Slag of the Year. And at that point, Mrs. went, Matthew Weir, bring me that note now. And I had to walk up to her desk, put it on her desk, and as I turned right back into the class, I thought, I'll get back to my desk without laughing. But it did not happen.
Was there any truth to this rumor?
She was our supply teacher that day, but she was a permanent member of staff. She ripped it up and threw it in the bin, which led us all to speculate that maybe she was Slag of the Year.
Yes.
And couldn't feel she could legally challenge it.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I don't, more power to her if she was. Why not? What she does in her evening's office between her and her conscience. So,
absolutely, I wouldn't be remotely upset if one of my students described me as
called
a
you slag.
Yeah, I'd be pretty impressed.
What is Portuguese for Slag of the Year? But yeah,
it's probably puta dana. I don't know.
Okay,
puta for everything. I'll look at horror of the year.
Oh, but those days are past, Matthew, aren't they? He's happily married.
Yeah.
So we were talking about Yam Yam York.
And can you explain Yam Yam, Peter, please? Why right. Yam Yam?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, and I only vaguely knew. Matthew, you might be aware of it. It's basically a regional slur, isn't it? It's someone who's from a particular part of the Black Country. I think is a Yam Yam.
I didn't know that, but now it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so I think it's like it's all ties into his accent, and I think it is. Yeah, like I said, it's a sort of an affectionate regional insult. Might be a way to put it. But yeah, it was anyway. It was all very weird. It was all a bit upsetting for me because I just sort of I think recently, historically, like I've said before, I've always had very low expectations from the Archers. But over the last 2 years, I really have thought it's like, top notch. The quality of writing, everything's been fantastic. So for them to dip down to this level again was, quite despairing. And then of course it was surrounded. And of course before that, because I mean, we had something that was even worse, which was Ruth doing her Boris Johnson act, where basically after years of mistreatment and sort of total lack of compassion for everyone around her, she's suddenly pretending, like Boris Johnson has been. After making all those sneering comments about the England football team, he's now claiming that he never wanted to see them booed and he only ever supported and loved them, and he's totally against racism. And it's like the same thing with Ruth and her pretense that she's this kind of loving and maternal mother.
And David as well, going weird.
Yeah, the whole thing. So I just, like I said in the intro, by Wednesday, I was all beaten up.
Oh come on! But Ruth and Ben are having great lols.
Oh, and hot chocolates. Oh yeah, she kept screeching with hysterical laughter, didn't she? I know this is going to be annoying for you, but I just want to go back a tiny bit and then we can come back to this bit. Is about drinking, and obviously Alice being the alcoholic, and then they've got this storyline now with the groom getting absolutely rat-arsed on a stag do to the point where he's in a coma in the back of the limo.
Yeah,
and it all being jolly japes.
Do you think that's intentional, or do you think that's just an oversight?
I don't know. I mean, it is very different treatment, isn't it, of alcohol basically, and Eddie was saying, the amount of times I've been found in a garden.
Yeah, he wanted to drag him out of the limo and leave him on Terry Twofone's lawn, didn't he?
Yeah.
But Clary was, I don't know what she just, there's a new ailment. Maybe Ben will discover it when he studies. Hypothermia that she said he might get.
Yeah. I don't know. It just rang a bit weird to me.
I thought they were kind of also doing that thing where, it's Ruth and Ben and they're very wholesome. He's nervous, so of course he has a hot chocolate before bed. He wouldn't dream of having like an Aldridge whiskey or a G&T. And then after his interview, she went, "Here you go, a nice strong cup of tea."
Yeah. Yeah, that struck me as well. I wrote down about the hot chocolate. Does anyone actually still have hot chocolate before they go to bed? And
I mean, a Horlicks. I miss the days of a good old mug of Horlicks. But I do think what you're saying is interesting, though, Kerry. That I mean, how are they going to? I mean, they can't turn the Archers into something that's not true to Britain. So I guess it is reflective of our society that we are all capable of, being sympathetic to the Alices in our lives, and at the same time, or even having some of those problems ourselves. And then at the same time, as a country, we have a very peculiar and slightly sort of idiotic, attitude to booze. And so, I mean, how are they supposed to write it? Are they supposed to just suddenly turn Archers, Ambridge into the only place where everyone's sober and sensible?
Definitely not. No, it just stood out for me because Alice is such recent history. Obviously she's still in it, but she's disappeared for a little while, and then suddenly there's a guy who's so drunk he doesn't know where he is.
I guess accidentally or intentionally, it still works, right? Because Alice is definitely. It's been a couple of times. I mean, Brian was the one they did it with intentionally, wasn't it? Where they were juxtaposing Brian sort of telling Jenny that, oh yes, he'd love a gin and tonic or whatever, insert Brian drink. But yeah, but this might have been an accidental one, but the effect is still very much the same, which I guess shows the value of the Alice plotline.
Yeah. And it was all a bit clumsy, wasn't it, at the end, where they said, I think Clary said, "Oh, I'm surprised it all went so smoothly," and then they opened the door and there's the guy.
Yeah,
he seemed. Yeah, I mean, I think they really kind of played to his outgrown lad image as well, didn't they? He didn't seem to be remotely worried that he'd woke up in the back of a limo on the morning of his wedding in a pair of short trousers that didn't fit him. And he's going to be driven by one of his ex-pupils who he's completely slagging all the way. Yeah,
he had 48 minutes till the service kicked off. So
exactly. And presumably she's not going to notice, this biology teacher. I don't think so.
Yeah, this I mean, she must have frayed around the edges a bit since Ed's time at school. That she's lowered herself to marrying someone who's going to smell like the drip tray, the stale drip tray from a pub.
I know, because from his perspective, it's been 32 years of him kind of trying to convince her, and it's probably just 32 years of every avenue closing for her, and she's just like, oh, I've got to marry fucking Yam Yam.
32 years of workplace harassment.
Also, the catfish person is a science teacher, so I was thinking, well, maybe it's Miss Peters.
Yeah,
she's a biology teacher.
You're on a tear this week, Kerry. All these massive sort of wormholes.
I know.
I mean, I thought I was the one that was not going to listen to the episodes and make my own crazy CIA board of conspiracy theories, but Kerry's listened to them, and she's already doing it. I mean, that would be brilliant. Yeah. I mean, didn't you also thought that Layla the catfish might be Joy?
Yeah, or Lexi. People on Twitter are saying.
Oh, that would be funny.
Oh, yep. and then this is her way of, and she's set up this profile, gone on the dating site and she's going to turn up, and that's going to be the big surprise. And maybe
to see if he's single, is he? Yeah.
I mean, that would be absurd, but I'd love him to be back with Lexi. I mean, I do like Roy. I know he's very dull, but I've got a lot of affection for him. He's sort of, he does the right thing. He's a good man.
However, he probably would have noticed Lexi's accent when they were on the phone.
Oh, because as Phoebe says, you can use a voice changer.
What, to stop you having the accent that she had with him? I can't remember where she was from. Was it Bulgaria?
I've got a few students that have got, what's the most common one? There's a voice changer app that you have on your desktop, voice mode. And sometimes I'd be teaching a Zoom class, and it was a class of all girls. And I just suddenly heard one of them go, "Thank you." And I looked up, and they were all laughing, but they'd all muted themselves. I was like, which one of you little shits was that? And at the end, all right, it was like, bye, see you next week. And then one of them went, bye, this massive Mickey Mouse voice. And I saw who it was just as she hit end meeting.
I'll send you a link later. I'll post it on Sunday as well. It's this amazing thing from New Zealand. But it's this little woman's got a voice like that, and she just immediately switches down to it's absolutely sensational. I'll see if I can remember to post that.
I mean, the only person who might sound like they're going through a voice changer app but isn't would be Kirsty.
Oh yeah, the Sean Dyche.
So she's not Lexi then. Kerry's made a very good point about the accent. The whole catfish thing, I mean, I guess it is current. I guess it's part of, educating sort of older, less tech savvy people about the pitfalls of the internet. You can see how it would be a kind of perfect BBC remit thing. But I just, can't. Just some of these characters, I just want them to have a. It's like, why does Roy have to be the perpetually unlucky in love guy? Why does why do the Grundys always have to be the ones who are down at heel? I mean, I guess it's great that actually the Aldridges, Alice is the one, the alcoholic. They haven't just sort of dragged some new character in for that, but. I mean, just give. I'm hoping, because actually there was, when he was talking sort of affectionately about What's Her Jobs, the teacher, he was saying about how they talk about, they have all these shared interests. Anyway, the conversations it sounded like they have didn't sound like catfish conversations. Like, a catfish conversation to me is, sort of basically they're trying to get to sort of naughty pictures and sort of like heavy flirting as soon as possible. Not having long not having months and months of chat with Roy about what was it?
Graphic novels.
Graphic novels, thank you, and Spanish language lessons and stuff.
And not having your photo taken.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm hoping that actually it might be that she is actually a really nice person, and Roy's.
Can I throw one more name into the mix who might be catfishing him? Philip from Prison.
Oh, Avenger Philip Moss.
Yeah.
Oh, well done, Matthew.
I was joking.
No, come on, this would be brilliant. He's sort of sitting in Nick with a voice changer, making him sound like a woman.
You need to get Mimi or Max to get you to follow the finger, touch your nose, rub your belly, and pat your head at the same time. Have you had a knock to the head or something? Because you are all over the place with these mad plot lines.
Yeah, I like it. And there was another thing which was ridiculous, which was when Roy said, "Oh yeah, she can't come. Her train was cancelled." Well, there's not just one train, is there? Because Phoebe said, "Well, why didn't she just get the next one?"
Where are they meeting that's equidistant between London and Ambridge, do we think? Milton Keynes?
Oxford.
That'd
be a nice place to meet. The what's it? The town of 1,000 spires, or the dreaming town of the city of the dreaming spires, whatever it's called. It's
and one train. 1,000 spires, but one train, and if it's cancelled, you can't go anywhere.
There's no. But, sorry, I mean, you might know about this, Kerry, but Oxford's famously got this one massive train, 15 stories high, 50 feet wide. Goes at 9 o'clock every morning. But yeah, it's an odd one. I mean, this is 2 weeks in a row where we've just been all over the place. And yes, we are taking our lead from the show. Like it was quite weird. So I was looking at the statistics for the show from the last couple of weeks, and it was very interesting to see the effect the football had on our numbers. So I think in a similar kind of way, where Ambridge goes, we go. And so it's kind of like when we have one of these weeks, it's difficult to kind of marshal your thoughts. When it's when it was just all in Lower Loxley, and they're all just sort of moving gracefully around the house, and the plot just follows these three characters around. You can kind of, when you're doing the podcast, you're just like, oh yeah, that's what we're talking about. With this week, I can't even remember what my name is.
It's really scrambled, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 minute there were sort of 25 cows, 15 cows. There's a limousine with a drunk man in it. Then there's Ben having his interview, stuffing
very
that up.
patronising about nurses. Thank you very much.
Suddenly got inspired by his mother because she chatted to him about an hour before the interview.
And then he stole her notes, didn't he?
The 6 C's, I wondered what they were going to involve when they started listing those.
Kebab. Condom. kerosene, Kahlua.
Crap.
Did you not think it was patronising to nurses, the way that the way it was being discussed?
Well, the interview questions were really childish, weren't they?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
thought.
It was like I mean, I've got friends who are nurses, and one in particular has, every time you ask about her career, she's going through another lengthy piece of training. She's moved steadily up the, it's the Ruth's version of events that, the doctors do the medicine and then the nurses just
Oh,
turn up and they're lovely and it's like, no, these people are highly trained medical professionals who, who have the, the agency and the intelligence to make some pretty important decisions themselves. They don't need to, they're not just
mm.
standing around waiting for a doctor to tell them what to do.
But
Anyway,
also, how she described it to Ben, it was as if that was a revelation that the nurses help people get through illnesses. It's
yeah.
like, yes, I really understand you now.
Yeah, the doctor or the oncologist gives the diagnosis, but the nurses, they do the rest. And I was like, isn't that how hospitals work
Yeah.
most of the time?
Look, anyway, I shat myself because of the drugs, but in the morning, do you know who cleaned me up? Wasn't a surgeon. Nowhere to be seen. Lazy bastard.
And to get to be a nurse, all you have to do is know how to help someone who's blind across a road,
Yeah, and
isn't
I
it?
thought that question was very bizarre. And it got a bit. What was it he said? Well, you can't just go to help them straight away because they might just be hanging out.
Yeah,
they might not want to.
they might be having a rest in that precise point.
Yeah. Some elderly prostitutes trying to trade her wares and get enough money together for that cup of hot chocolate that Kerry was mentioning. And all of a sudden, some interfering young farmers trying to drag her into the traffic.
Yeah, I mean, during rush hour, there was a blind guy crossing the street with me in Dublin in Merrion Square in winter just before Christmas. So town is jammed. And I said to the guy, like, do you need help crossing the road? He said, oh, yes, please. And then asked him where he was going. He's going in my direction. I was just like, put the cane away, like, we'll go the whole way. So we just linked up arms and went the whole way. But this idea that, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't ask him because you might hurt his feelings or something. I thought it was a bit much, really.
Yeah, would that be a question for a nursing
Yeah, I doubted
application?
that.
I don't know. And then the other scenario was about a student nurse struggling with balancing placements with studying. What would you say?
That's a good point. Actually, I would struggle with that, so I probably shouldn't do it. So yeah, thanks for saying that question first. Saves me a lot of time. Maybe I'll see you around.
Yeah, forget the fact that I'm a caring, compassionate person who has this passion to help, but that question, nah.
Oh, it's very peculiar. Do you think he's got in?
Oh,
Is he going to be doing this?
He's got to have gotten in. There's no other possibility, is there? But I just yeah, I mean, I like Ben a lot. I think he's sort of, his family don't deserve him. I mean, Josh does. Josh is all right, but the rest of them, I mean, even at their best, they were annoying. I just don't like. This is the problem with this week. Is I really like. I did care about Lee and Helen. I actually weirdly cared about Helen as well, which is I felt quite that was a strange sensation. But Ian, Eddie, even the whole Yam Yam thing, the Ruth, David, all of it, I just didn't care. It was just a series of scenarios in which I had no interest in how it played out. I mean, obviously I care about Ben becoming a nurse, but that's not that. There was no jeopardy to it. Like were they genuinely trying to sell us the idea that to build on Kerry's point, trying to sell us the idea that he wasn't going to get in?
I don't know. It's great that he wants to be a nurse, but is this really how it happens? I don't think so.
He's getting in, isn't he?
Yeah,
for sure.
probably. Because actually caring for in a nursing sense is so similar to farming, which is providing care. That was a complete sledgehammer moment, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was.
and it turned into a big joke.
I did feel a bit sorry for Roy, getting all excited about his date and then having to have a sausage casserole. I mean, no one
Tom
likes
Archer
those.
sausage casserole.
What? Yeah. What? I didn't even bother with the rewind. What type of sausage casserole was that?
A Tom Archer sausage casserole.
Did he say Tom Archer?
He made sausages out of Tom Archer.
I thought he said like a casserole. I thought he said like a tomachi, I thought it was like some spice from Morocco that I'd never heard of. I like the way that Mr. Sausage is Tom's nickname in the WhatsApp group. And Tony's Farmer Giles, isn't he?
Yeah. Piles. Mr. Sausage.
When I mean, I know we're kind of going around the houses here, but that whole thing with Lee and the WhatsApp group and Kyle, when he went round there to have it out with her, and then Joy was there, saying, "Oh, I kicked him out the group," but then someone else let him back in, and then finally Lee comes back to him and goes, "Helen, I'm sorry, so sorry." And then I thought he was going to go, "Kyle's dead."
Yeah, I've killed him.
We need to talk to Lee about that. Sorry, to Ryan about that, because I don't know. I think there must be more. It's obviously it's going to build from there. So I think they've sold us this. They've sold us this. Lee has pushed down this quite intense, and I do. To be fair, this intense anger. I do get how in a new relationship you would be when you're kind of trying to feel each other out a little bit. How you might be a little bit more protective and a little bit sort of quicker to lean in.
But what had Kyle actually said? That she's a psycho, and then there was the newspaper article about the bloodbath farm or something.
The thing that no one said is actually really good gossip. Like if you lived in a small community, and you've got this nutty family who are sort of like, they're kind of all boring. Every time you bump into them, they're boring you madly about organics. Pat's kind of like covered in dream catchers and patchouli oil. You've got sort of Tom dressed up like sort of Del Boy from the 1980s, kind of like sort of with his file of facts, kind of constantly sort of like muttering about business schemes, and then you've got the pretty daughter who's a axe murderer. So it's like how could they not gossip? I think fair play to Kyle, really.
Yeah. You definitely would say stuff, wouldn't you? And the fact he's called Kyle, that was said in such a dismissive way. That was a real class type thing, wasn't it?
Kyle would be the enemy of Karate Kid, wouldn't he? In one of the spin-off movies, I feel.
Yeah, this is who. So yeah, I mean, obviously, Cobra Kai is out. Ralph Macchio, he has the same baddie he has the same enemy as an adult as he does as a kid. So you were saying about Lee being bullied. Could Kyle be some nemesis from his school days? I mean, no, Kerry, you've infected me. I'm off that one as well.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous.
I mean, going back to a little slip of the tongue you had earlier, I am absolutely terrified that I'm just going to continually refer to Ryan as Lee when he's on the podcast.
Oh, he won't mind, will he?
He does seem like a fun guy. He's been helping Matthew out with technical problems.
Yeah, he was the millennial to my creaky Gen Xer today on Instagram.
Was it dirty or filthy he referred to us as?
Filthy,
which, guilty as charged.
Yep.
Coming from a man that sleeps under tarpaulin on a mountainside, that's take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm ashamed to say that, but the podcast is a massively cleaned up version of our personalities.
I know.
I mean, if the WhatsApp group would be absolutely unbroadcastable. It's just,
the recorded message that I had for Kerry to get us in the mood before recording. I mean, that could never go on air, could it?
It's like
I wish.
It's like sort of Morse code, but with dots and dashes. It's
Maybe for the Patreon Christmas special, we'll just read aloud, or we'll put the entire WhatsApp group into a voice machine, and it can just read the whole fucking thing.
The voice changer.
We'd have to lawyer up as well quite a
lot. Yeah, where is Usha?
So we've got I nearly did it again. We've got Ryan coming next week, and so what are the things we need to ask him about? So we need people to write in. We need everyone to hit us with the DMs on Twitter, send Matthew the links on Facebook, and to email us at hello@thesideshit.com. It's very exciting. I think we were over the moon to have Susie on. And obviously Tracy's kind of at the centre of the village, but I feel so there's like a real frisson of excitement to kind of like it feels like a scoop to get Lee because he's such a new character.
Yes, and I just love the fact that Lee and Ryan are so different.
Yes,
so very, very different. This is great. Can I just mention something about Susie? by
Pardon?
the way. Can I just mention something about
Oh, yes.
Susie? Um, I reckon Susie played the interviewer.
Oh, well, you need to get that confirmed by next week, Kerry.
Yeah, I'll ask her.
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
Because she's good at putting voices on, accents on. It was a Birmingham lady, and when I was listening today, I was like, "Is that Susie?"
yeah. I mean,
Mm.
I mean, I'm definitely wrong about my they've changed the way they do the show because they are doing a lot more of these sort of, little cameo appearances,
Mhm.
bringing in for sort of these kind of textural kind of micro roles, to sort of help sort of flesh things out, which I kind of like, but it's going to take a while to get used to it, isn't it? Because you're going to have to we're going to have to put down that kind of desire to sort of flesh out each of these. Where how long are they going to stick around for? What are they going to do? Where are they going to
Mm.
go to? So maybe a good example would be maybe Solomon isn't going to come back because I was determined that he would, but actually maybe he was just a 2 episode character. That's the way we're doing things.
Mm. No, I reckon he's coming back.
When you said Susie played the interviewer, I meant like she played us and span us some wide,
Oh.
fantastical story when we were interviewing her. And I was like, oh, played the interview with Ben. All right, got it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I meant.
So
Yeah.
I read out that it was hello at the cider shed for any questions if you want to ping them via email. And Kerry, just can you remind us what the Twitter handle is?
I can. It is, she says, opening Twitter. I remember.
Bloody hell, Kerry.
I'm so sorry. I'm quite tired. At the Cider Shed Pod is our Twitter handle, and we are almost at 1,000 followers. Woohoo!
Yeah, I mean, Kerry and I have a good excuse for being exhausted because we're dealing with the peculiar sensation of being happy after months of
Yeah.
stress. So I think I don't know. I don't want to speak for Kerry, but I feel absolutely sort of like so I feel like a spinning top. I don't know what to do with all these sort of like. I feel like David Archer. It's kind of very strange to be feeling sort of full of glee and happiness.
Have you been whistling?
I've just bouncing all over the place. Been very
Mm.
very happy man.
I've been riding on the wave of the fact that at the beginning of the week I managed to introduce Kerry to a Brian Ferry song she's never heard before.
Yes, you did. I'd never heard it. Thank you for that, Matthew.
It's all right.
And Matthew, what are we doing for Facebook and Instagram?
Well, I put the word out on Instagram, which is the Cider Shed Pod. So the news is up there if people didn't know already about Lee. And on the Cider Shed Podcast, which is our group on Facebook, we made the announcement there. Yeah, and if people don't want to go through the email, they can just leave a comment there. They can slide into the DMs of either the Facebook admin or the Instagram account, and we'll get them to Ryan.
And if the threat is, if you don't get these questions into us, then it's going to be 40 minutes plus of Matthew and Kerry trying to stop me asking Ryan a question about camping.
Yeah, there's gonna be a moment where I'm just gonna. I pictured this week. There'll just be a moment where I'll be like, "Psst, Kerry, should we leave?"
Honestly, that's my dream is that I can make a camping buddy and he maybe do another podcast as well. So
I think he lives quite near to you as well, Peter.
He's very welcome.
Southeast London somewhere.
Well, if
Not that I've stalked him or anything.
If he wants to come, I was about to say come in my sweaty little box, but that sounds dreadful. If he wants to come into my tiny little hot office, then
that's worse.
For the recording.
Hot orifice.
Yeah. But Ryan, if you want to come and record from my office, you're more than welcome. But I strongly recommend you don't. It's the weather is it's vile. But anyway,
yeah, he actually couldn't he?
Yeah.
How vile is the weather? I mean, it was like 36 here, and it's still 31, and I'm in a sealed room right now.
It's the humidity. I feel like I'm wrapped in cling film. It's just awful.
Oh. Hey, before I forget, can I just thank Vicky Cole for a lovely lunch on Wednesday? She's a podcast listener, a fan of the three of us, and she took me out for lunch on Wednesday.
I could have been in on that, couldn't I? But because now my life's full again, I couldn't participate. But, so I'm glad you two had fun.
Yeah, it was really, really lovely meeting her.
Thank you. That's another thing we should do is when when eventually the Johnson variant plays out, and then the other variants, and then lockdowns 5, 7, and 12 are all gone, and we've been quadruple jabbed, we will have to do our first big meetup at some point. We'll have to pick a location. So as well as questions for Lee, feel free to start fleshing that idea out. Suggestions for locations somewhere in the middle, maybe Oxford. 1 train a day, apparently.
Oh, do you mean with listeners as well?
Yeah, big meetup.
It'll be funny if the first time I meet you is with the listeners.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that would be quite something.
Imagine if a massive fist fight breaks out between the
Me
two
and
of
Gary.
you. Yeah. And I'll just be like, "This is awkward, guys."
I respect Kerry enough that I would not pull my punches. If it comes to blows, Kerry, I wouldn't patronise you by giving you, little weak slaps. It'll be, I don't think it's going to happen, but I just want, like I wouldn't, I as a feminist, I would.
You'd happily punch me.
Happily beat the living shit out of you. Yeah.
I'd like to see you try.
Maybe you should meet somewhere neutral, like Porto.
Yeah, okay.
I'm wanting something dramatic. I think if Kerry and I can have a fight underneath the Angel of the North, stripped to the waist, woad on our cheeks, Kerry with a frozen lamb shank in her hand.
You with
some sort of camping pole.
Yeah, you're the medium-sized of your 12 million, tent peg hammers.
They're very light, actually, Matthew. Don't think I would choose those. Talk about Ryan. Have we? Is this got to be enough nonsense now, hasn't it?
Yeah, yes. we can only work with what we were given.
Yeah, but come on, we've added. We've certainly added. Well, I've had a lot of fun, and can't wait for next week. It's going to be a really, really good one.
Yes, Ryan.
Yeah.
Ryan.
Lee. Yeah.
See you next week.
See ya. Bye.